Hello and welcome to Ellie's Batting Mentality podcast. This is a real personal one for me. A lot of my fondest cricketing memories involve Martin James Guptill. From playing against one another since the age of 12 to going into battle for Auckland age group teams against our provincial rivals together for 6 years, representing our country at the 2006 Under-19 World Cup in Sri Lanka, and then watching him dominate white ball cricket on the international stage for 13 years. Whether it be his 237 not out against the West Indies at the 2015 Cricket World Cup, the unbeaten 180 against South Africa in 2017, or 114 against Australia at Sydney in 2016, Guppy gave New Zealand an incredible amount of joy. Seeing him whack the best bowlers in the world long and straight with a perfectly full face of the bat, or pulling the quicks into the stands over square leg was a true sight to behold. Guppy discusses the tournament that put him on the map as a 17-year-old, when Deepak Patel told him to head inside for a chat, the former black cap who abused him on debut for the Aces, his innings that was erased from the collective memory after Baz played one of his gems, his best innings for New Zealand, and the controllable difference between what he's doing when he's scoring runs compared to when he isn't. We started the conversation by talking about his memories of the 2002-03 National Under-19 tournament at Lincoln.
I remember we were the youngest in the team by quite some way, you and I. I think Carl Kachopa would have been, and Derek DeBorder probably the next eldest, the sort of, or youngest above us, a year ahead of us. But yeah, we were, and Munners as well, obviously. We hadn't got at Munners, but we, especially for me, it was like I was a very skinny kid, and you remember this very well. You used to give me a lot of stick for being such a skinny kid. I didn't have a lot of power. In that tournament, yeah, I think I was one of the top 3-5 run scorers in the tournament. No one knew who I was. No one expected me to do as well as I did, and that was just one of those sort of times where you find a method, you find a way to score runs. I can remember one of the games against Otago, I got 66 off 270 balls in a 2-day game. Couldn't hit it off the square, but occupied the crease. Got through, put on some partnerships. I think Sam Mackay may have even got some runs in that game, and put on a bit of a partnership there. And I think we ended up coming second in the tournament. Somehow it's always us and ND, isn't it? Back then, 1 and 2. But that one there, I mean, once the one day is hit, I don't know what it was. I don't know if you can remember that bat of my dad's that I used to use, the big Kahuna. Yeah, I think I started using that in the one day stuff, and shit, it was way too heavy for me. 3-pound skinny kid, could barely lift it, but I found a way, got through. I think I got 100 in the first one-day game. I got 90 in the next one, and then it was sort of from there it sort of took off, because then we had the under-17 tournament a couple of weeks after that, was it?
Yep.
And then I sort of just continued at that tournament, and yeah, I just found a way. It wasn't until a few years later where I started to put on a little bit more size and got a bit stronger, that I was actually able to hit the ball a bit harder. But you find these times in your career where you may be the smallest, the weakest, not the strongest or anything like that, but you find a way to actually compete with people that are bigger and stronger and faster and that sort of thing, But yeah, that was good fun, that tournament. I remember we just had a great time down there. A week at Lincoln. We got the luck of the draw, staying in the pavilions out there at Lincoln. All the other guys in the university halls. So we struck a nice one there. But that was good fun. Yeah, I guess from there it sort of almost put me on the radar a little bit more with Auckland cricket, especially. I was always there or thereabouts in the Auckland age group setup, 14s, 15s, 17s. But that year sort of put me a little bit more on the radar with the amount of runs that I scored.
But my outside of the playing side of things, you have an incredible memory to remember where we actually stayed that tournament. But what I recollect the most is the hot colds that we used to do and jumping in the chili bins of the big.
That was my first introduction to them. Never done them before in the chili bins. Oh gosh, I've got great memories of. I think it was the next year where Ronnie, his first tournament. Do you remember that? It was it Munners who put the lid on the chili bin up? Yeah. Oh, good times. No, they were terrible things. And I guess at the time you hated them, but as you go through and play in the higher levels and higher grades and things, they become pretty key, and you just sort of get used to them. But gosh, with that first time you do them, it's horrendous.
Yeah, not fun, man.
No.
So I'm intrigued now. You talk about that sort of purple patch that you reached. Was that timing in and around when you were playing for suburbs and playing against men for the first time? Because I'm really interested in how how you sort of bridge the gap between facing boys to then batting against men and any challenges you face there.
So I debuted for suburbs when I think I was 16. It might have been, or it might have been early, just turned 17 sort of thing. And I can remember it just being a step up from schoolboy cricket. Suburbs at the time were in the first grade comp, so we weren't actually playing, the premier grade. So, my first game was against Eden Roskill at the Mighty Ken, and I think I might have got about 20 odd. Nothing inspiring or anything like that, and then getting strangled down the leg side, trying to pull one. So like got these little memories and things like that, and just that little step up. And then once I started playing all those age group tournaments and scoring runs, and then I came back after the under-17 tournament, and I think it was the first game back, or first or second game back I played for suburbs, my third game in first grade cricket. I got 110 against Waitak. And suburbs Waitakere is a huge, especially back then, was a huge rivalry. I still remember it vividly. We were chasing 190, 191-ish, and I was last man out, 110. We lost first innings by one run. As a young 17-year-old, whatever I was, that was gutting. It's absolutely gutted because they had some good players. They had Keely Todd, they had Unruh Kitchen. I don't think Ronnie was playing, but there was these club stalwarts that they had. Over the years, was just like, it was my chance to get one over them, and I think they actually ended up getting promoted that year. We stayed down, so yes, it was gutting back then, but obviously pretty thankful for my first club 100.
So yeah, I mean, getting that success early on must have meant that straight away you knew you were good enough against men. It wasn't as though you were just bullying boys; you could do it against men too.
Yeah, and I wanted that season. I wanted to finish off the club summer. Didn't want to play first 11 at school, but the principal ended up saying no. I had to play for the school, which I was a bit gutted about. But then I went back to school cricket and did pretty well, dominated, and the rest is sort of history, I guess.
Brilliant, mate. So far as I can recall, you were called up to the Aces around sort of December, January 2005, 2006. So what can you remember about that experience as a young man?
Yeah, I remember that vividly as well. I'm not sure if you can remember. I think we were during a 2-day game playing on Bert Sutcliffe Oval. Dipak calls me, comes over and says, "Oh, can I speak to you outside?" And the first thing I thought to myself was, "What the hell have I done? Am I in trouble here?" And he's pulled me outside and he's gone, "I just want to let you know you've been called up to play for the Aces tomorrow." And I was just stunned. Like, I wasn't expecting it. It was completely out of the blue. And I was just like, "Oh shit, really?" And then I went back in, and I think I fielded for the next session, and then went off, packed my gear, and went off to the airport. But no, it was just a complete shock. I don't think you ever think you're ready for it, especially when it's so out of the blue like that. I never thought about it. Never thought about that I was going to be playing for Auckland that sort of summer or anything like that. But no, it was awesome to get the call up. And then I remember getting home, going to Eden Park and getting my kit when I landed, and then the next day was the game. So I didn't really go to training or anything like that. I was just straight in for a game. And I got there in plenty of time. I don't know if you can remember the old Eden Park had that gate with the indoor nets where they had the gate. You go down and then into the under what's the concourse now. But I got stuck at that gate for about 20, 25 minutes because I didn't know the code to get in. And I'm ringing Mark O'Donnell, trying to get hold of him. No one's answering. I didn't know anyone. I even called Reese Young. I tried to get him to see but no one answered. And I was just standing out was standing outside the gate like just like I'm just waiting for something, and I was just like, am I going to end up being late for my first game here? Like, I'm actually here in plenty of time, but I can't get in. Anyway, eventually got in, and I was batting number 3. Sat down upstairs in the viewing area. First ball of the game happens, and I'm walking down to go out and bat. Timmy McIntosh left one off Stephen Kunis and out LBW first ball of the game. And then I was facing the second. So it all happened pretty quick. Ended up getting abused by Craig McMillan in my first game, as he did to a lot of people, I think. But no, it was awesome to make my debut for them, for Auckland. You know, I still love playing for Auckland now, nearly 20 years later. So it was pretty awesome. But unfortunately, we got rock and roll for about 100 in that game. So yeah, not ideal, but no, awesome memories.
I can recall what happened actually. Like you, I mean, my mind was completely on the under-19 tournament that we were playing and trying to win it, and we hadn't won it. And so when we got the news that you'd obviously been called up, obviously like shock is the first thing, because you just don't think it's even possible when you're all at an under-19 tournament, right? But
Yeah,
when you sat back and thought about it and the amount of runs you were scoring, it shouldn't really have been a surprise, and the way you were playing. But I just remember, you heading off, obviously exciting times for you, but also like gutting for us, because one thing I was thinking, the amount of time we spent together, not just you and I necessarily, but the crux of that squad.
yeah.
We've been together for a long time, right? 6 or 7 years. We played so much cricket together. So to have you not there, we really felt that, your absence. And thankfully, I guess because we had that good, strong spine in our team, we also had like some pretty good replacements and guys who had been scoring a lot of runs who couldn't necessarily get into the squad, right? So to be able to call someone else up was good, because we had a quality of player, obviously not at your level, but I mean, it was the likes of Jeet. I think Jeet got more of an opportunity playing, batting higher up the order potentially at that particular time. So the depth was awesome, but I'm just thinking, the age of I think you would have been 19 at that time, going in and facing these guys you'd seen on TV, like some McMillan, probably looking up to those guys, and then copping a little bit of verbal from them as well. Like how are you handling that out of the middle, and sort of managing your thoughts to make sure you're still getting the best out of yourself?
Yeah, they had some good players in there. They had Chris Harris as well. He was my first boundary was a 6 off him. He opened the bowling. Not sure he'd ever done that much in his career, but he opened the bowling. They had Macca, Stephen Kunis. I think Gary Stead even played in that game as well. So like, they had like a very, very good Canterbury side. Leighton Burt made his debut as well for them. He took 5. So it was pretty cool. You just sort of try and block everything out, which is pretty tough when you're just a kid and you got these people that have played for New Zealand for years, absolutely abusing you. But then I ended up getting, I think I got 28 or something like that, and did all right. Ended up getting caught by McMillan and to get out. So, but no, it was eye-opening, that's for sure. But all in all, it was a great experience. I mean, I think I ended up playing 4 more one days in a T20 before the Under-19 World Cup that year. So I had a bit of a taste of it before going to Sri Lanka for that tournament. So yeah, it was very special.
So if we fast forward, we won't talk too much about the Under-19 World Cup, mate. We won't worry about that. But
we did that off camera, didn't we?
but if we fast forward through to 2008 and moving to the State Shield campaign that season, in particular the final, which will probably be remembered for another one of Baz's gems chasing, you made for your own sort of longer term standards, you made a relatively sedate 110, still 100 in a State Shield finals, massive, and setting the Aces up to make 310 for 7. So what do you recall about that game and also that season?
Yeah, that game, I tell you, it was a flat wicket. It was an absolute road at Eden Park. But it was a great game. I think I had a couple of really good partnerships. I think one with Richard Jones, and then Scotty Styris came out, and I think he got about 60 or 80 odd, and we really put us on the front foot. You get 300 in the final, you think you're well ahead of the game at that stage, until someone else comes in and has an absolute blinder. There was one moment where we probably could have won the game. I think Chris Martin bowled one and Baz's uppercut one to third man, and Andy Mackay's running off the boundary and then ended up having to go back, and it would have just landed just over his head. So it would have been, it could have been a different game, but like, oh man, being part of a game like that, when you're out there batting, you're just batting really. You're not thinking too much, especially at that age. I mean, I would have been only 20 or 21, probably 21, I think. And you're just batting. You're not thinking about too much else. You're just trying to get as many runs as you can. And at that stage of my career, still didn't have much of an idea of, I guess, the importance of strike rotation as much as what I learned throughout my career. That was a sort of tough one, because I would chew up a lot of dot balls, get a couple of singles in, sort of get a boundary here or there, sort of thing. It was, yeah, my mindset's changed massively, but that's just come through experience of playing a lot of cricket. I mean, I've played 198 ODIs. I understand the game a hell of a lot better now than I did back then. So it's it's certainly changed, but we possibly could have got towards 350 in that game, I think. If I knew back then what I know now, it would have been a massively different game. And that for experience. So yeah,
absolutely.
Can't expect 1-year-olds to understand that.
For sure. So that campaign, you scored just under 600 runs in 11 innings, averaging just under 60, 200s, 350s. So is there anything in particular you recall about that campaign that helped you, find that rhythm and find that consistency?
Well, one thing about that campaign, it should have been 300s and 250s. I got bloody LBW to Ross Taylor on 90 in one game. He still reminds me about that to this day. But
what shot were you playing?
Say again, sorry?
What shot were you playing?
I was just trying to nudge him down the ground for one, and he missed it.
Been you on the inside?
Yeah, I think I hit a rock or something. No, I think I hit a stone. I mustn't have cleared anything off the wicket. No, he still reminds me about that. But like that whole tournament, like the previous season, I was in and out of the team pretty consistently. Auckland had got an overseas player in Mal Loy, so I was 12th man for the first part of the season. We're coming for a game here or there, be back out, and so it was hard to find any sort of consistency or anything like that. And start of that next season, actually, the one that I did get those runs, we had the 4 days first. I didn't do anything special, got a couple of scores, felt all right with the bat, and then once the 1 days sort of started, I didn't start off particularly quickly or anything like that. I think I got a 40 odd in the first game. With my first game on the Eden Park #1 against ND. And their bowling attack was, I think, Aldridge, Arnell, Southey, Bruce Martin. So it was a pretty decent lineup, and I think I got a quick 40 odd, got us off to a good start, and then Rob Nichol and Jonesy both got 100, so we put on a massive total, and then we ended up winning the game, and then from there it was sort of just everything just sort of flowed. Got my first 100 against Canterbury at Rangiora, and then just sort of carried on the momentum. It's just one of those, it's another one of those times where purple patch, you ride the wave. It doesn't always go your way, but just tried to take each ball as it came, and just tried to play really. As I said before about the experience thing, probably scored a hell of a lot more runs in that campaign had I knew what I know now.
It is funny how things work, right? As you say, you looking back, you think you could do things a lot differently, right? But at the same time, the reality of having all this knowledge doesn't necessarily always translate purely into the runs, right? So there's clearly something that you were doing then that was helping to make you successful, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so long ago, the intricacies of what I was thinking that I couldn't tell you, couldn't remember.
Yeah, I get it, man. So you touched on a great point there. You talked about how if you look back now retrospectively and you think critically about how you were playing at that time, you think you potentially chewed up too many dot balls. So with that sort of lesson that you've learned and insight, how did you take that lesson, but then try and turn it into, I guess ultimately you're needing to adjust your instinct, right? So how are you going about that in a training capacity to get the best out of yourself in a game?
See, back then training was still very much your net stuff, a little bit of one-on-one work after that, but it wasn't until years later when I've been playing for New Zealand and we had sort of tours coming up and things, and I was training, closely with Mark O'Donnell, that my training sort of changed. Early days it was about just hitting balls, hitting balls, hitting balls, no situational training or anything like that. And now all my trainings are, I've got a like mental map of what I think the field's going to be, and I train to that. Always changing things like that. I'm talking to Mark if he's throwing, if he's on the bowling machine, and things like that. Always talking to him, about technical things, but also about tactically doing different things as well. And we've played around with different things over the years, trying to hit only one zone, trying to hit different zones, different balls, balls from well outside off to the leg side. I'm only allowed to play leg side. I'm only allowed to play offside, all different things. We've played around with that for years. And now it's all about, setting that mental field map in my brain and basically trying to hit the ball where the fielders aren't, manipulate the ball, strike rotation, power hitting. It's everything. It's all facets of batting.
Nice. And so when you're working on strike rotation, for example, say you're working against spin, and you're trying to focus on maybe getting that kind of good length ball that you're not really sure whether to go forward or back to. And if you were to play it as an age group player, you might just come forward and defend it instead of, just defending that ball. What are you actually doing in training to try and turn that into a single?
Probably still blocking it at the moment, but no. I guess with my height, I've been lucky enough that I can, and sort of my power down the ground, I've been lucky enough that I'm able to get forward and actually still be able to use a little bit of power to hit that length ball down the ground. Obviously, conditions can change that, but like batting at home, the wicket's true enough that you can still just punch it down the ground for one. And if it's not quite there, it's about trying to manipulate it into a gap, sort of square of the wicket. And what I've learned over the years is that if you have a dot ball, it doesn't actually matter. Like, as long as you're still there, still batting, still fighting, you're doing good for the team. That's the main crux of it, is as long as you're out there building a partnership with the guy at the other end, the team's actually in a much better position than you trying to force something that's not there. That my thoughts about batting and things have sort of changed all over the years. But now if you've got a partnership going, you're well ahead of the game. If you think back to times when you've been playing cricket, the big scores that the team scored, it's all because there's been a massive partnership, and then there's been smaller partnerships off that to help, right? That's what batting's about, is having those partnerships, working with the guy at the other end, and just denying the opposition the chance to take wickets. That may be through soaking pressure, few dot balls here and there. It's not going to matter at the end of the day. If you and your mate are doing the job for the team, the team's going to be in a great position.
I love that, mate. That's certainly my understanding of 50 over cricket in particular. What is generally a successful formula, right? As you say, it's those big partnerships. Potentially somebody is chewing up a few balls, right? Maybe more so than everyone would like. But as you said, deny the opposition, build that big partnership, momentum in your favour. And then towards the back of the innings, especially if your batting lineup's well suited to having a bit of depth and a bit of power, you can always score plenty, especially at certain grounds in New Zealand, right? So I'm glad that's your mentality as well. I think maybe, I guess teams are trying to do things a little bit differently these days and going a bit harder, a bit earlier than maybe that traditional play. But I feel like I picked that approach up from the likes of Nathan Astor, right? Watching him when we were growing up. Come hard early, maybe in the first 15 overs, and coming hard then was a bit different to coming hard as it is now. But scoring sort of runnable that first 15, then just accumulating through the middle overs before then going big at the death. Did that, did the way he played, did that have an impact on the way you tried to open the batting in 50 over matches?
Yeah, massively. He was, when I became more of a batter, sort of from the under 14 or maybe even before that. So that age, he was one I really looked up to when I started opening the batting and things. So I was actually fortunate enough to bat with him when I was at the academy in 2005. So to be able to have that was pretty special. We played against Canterbury in that game, and to have him at the other end, and yeah, it was pretty special. Because he was pretty iconic. Through our childhood, opening batting for New Zealand, running down at bowlers, whacking them over the top and things, and so yeah, I learned a lot of him just watching how he played and things like that. So yeah, it's key. Those partnerships are key in batting. T20 cricket as well. Everybody talks about, you gotta be able to go out and smash the ball from ball one. It's not always that easy. I think the art of batsmanship is almost slowly dying with the way T20 cricket is going now. The flatter wickets, the smaller boundaries, and everything. Try and just go out and whack it. Yeah, it's not that easy. You still got to give yourself a couple of balls to. Don't get me wrong. There will be days where it just clicks for you from ball one, but give yourself a couple of balls, and from there you can actually give yourself the best chance to actually hit the ball nice and hard and far.
So if we move on from that State Shield campaign, 10 months later, you were making your Black Caps debut, scoring a memorable 122 not out at Eden Park. What do you remember about that time in your life, and also specifically about that innings?
Yeah, it was a tough start to the season for me, that one. I dislocated my kneecap playing for CPA against Northland, just like a bit of a charity sort of fun game. Remember, yeah, just trying to hoy one out the ground and kneecap popped out, and that was the first part of my season done, really. I think I missed the first 3-4 day games of the season. Came back and played against the West Indies in a 3-day game for Auckland. That was my first game back. Got nicked off not very many, and then thought, because before that I was in great form. I'd been on the emerging players trip in the winter to Australia, scored some good runs there. Went to India with the New Zealand A team, scored some all right runs there as well. So I was feeling pretty good. And then you have the setback where you think, oh no, things aren't going the way they should be. And then came back, and that game against West Indies, got out for next to nothing. Watched Richard Jones get double 100. I think Jeet scored some runs as well. It was his first game for Auckland. So I was thinking, almost end of the world sort of thing. It's not happening for me. And then played against Otago in the next round of the state championship. I got my first class 100. Got a good 140 odd drawn game. But then that led into the 1-day campaign, where I think I had about 2 or 3 single digit scores in a row, and I was thinking, I've just scored 100 the other week. How can this be happening? And I can remember we played a New Year's Day game in Hamilton, and we trained New Year's Eve. I remember this like so vividly. I was facing Daryl Tuffy. He had the ball talking, swinging, nipping, everything. I kept nicking off, getting bowled in the nets, and it just got to the point where he would just literally let the ball go and start laughing at me, because I had no idea why I couldn't hit the ball. I had no Scooby what was going on. I was getting frustrated, getting angry, and everything. And yeah, Daryl, it almost ended up making me laugh as well, just because of how bad I was batting. And then the next day I ended up getting 120 off 90 balls. So something clicked in the nets before the game the next day. I figured it out and whacked 120 in a shortened game. We ended up losing that game, but it just sort of clicked from there. And then the next game we played Otago, I think I got 60 odd. And then literally two or 3 nights later, I got a call from Glenn Turner about 9 o'clock at night saying, look, we think you're good enough. You're been called up to play in the last 2 ODIs against West Indies from Saturday. And I was in complete shock as well. That wasn't on my radar. Still pretty fresh-faced, still skinny 22-year-old. I just was coming out of complete shock. Never saw it coming. And then obviously got into that day. It was a little bit of an overcast day at Auckland. First runs were edged down to third man for a single off Fidel Edwards. And then from there it just sort of flowed, sort of happened. Roscoe and I, first time I've ever batted with Ross, I think. Well, for New Zealand especially, 140 odd partnerships. So we started off on the right foot there, and then carry the bat through. I was pretty knackered after that day. The intensity of international cricket is a massive step up from what I'd been playing. So it was awesome. And obviously Neil Broom was not out with me at the other end, his debut as well. So played a bit of cricket with him over that winter leading into it as well. So we it was nice to have debuted with him, and obviously ended up with 120 odd not out. It was it was a special day.
Can't really get too much better than that, mate.
Yeah.
We fast forward again now. I've picked 3 of the ODI innings that stand out to me, and two are pretty well known in terms of, everyone will remember. Well, certainly the first one, the 237 not out against West Indies in Wellington, 2015 Cricket World Cup. I mean, that campaign was incredible. I was working in the media at that point, and thankfully I got media passes to all of New Zealand's games in New Zealand. And watching the team, the level of confidence the team just had, from the outside, just growing and growing and growing as that tournament went, was awesome. I remember you got 110, I think it was, against Bangladesh in Hamilton the previous game. And I think you probably won't mind me saying, it was a scratchy 100. You really had to fight for it. I don't think the conditions necessarily were as easy as maybe the quarterfinal, but similar to what I'd seen throughout your career, you almost made one score and tough runs that where it didn't necessarily come easy to you. And then for whatever reason, it was like next innings was going to be something special. So your recollection of the double 100.
Yeah, see, I look at it differently because I think that 100 in Hamilton was actually off 80 odd balls. So I didn't scratch around too much. I actually think the previous game against Afghanistan and Napier on a flat one was actually scratchier. I think I got 50 off about 70 balls. And that was almost the turning point, because obviously I'd had a pretty lean patch running into the World Cup, where I still felt like I was actually batting really well. Like I was batting well in the nets, hitting it nicely. It just wasn't translating out on the field. So I started the World Cup off all right. I got a 49 in the first game against Sri Lanka. It felt all right, went all right, couple of lower scores. And then once I hit that once I got through the Afghanistan game, got to Hamilton, I actually felt really good. I think my footwork and everything just went up a level in that Bangladesh game, and I was hitting the ball really clean, all around the wicket really. I was pulling, cutting, driving. It just sort of flowed from there, and then leading into that quarter final, I wouldn't have said it was a rapid first 100. It was 100 off 111. Hadn't hit a 6, and then it was the next 52 balls that really just sort of changed. I was just batting, having some fun, put on 140 with Roscoe for the 3rd wicket, and then from there it was just total carnage really. I don't know what happened. I didn't say to myself, I'm just going to start whacking it now, but what got me going was, I'll say a front foot pull shot off Darren Sammy, but when you look at the replay, it was just a dirty slog over mid wicket that sort of got me going. And from there, the ball just didn't miss the middle of the bat. Everything I tried worked. The ball was a lot of the time was put on a wee bit of a plate for me to hit. They missed a lot, and the way that I was sort of going at that stage, I was hitting it. It was going. And those sort of innings are so few and far between in international cricket. You have to make the most of them. And fortunately for myself, for New Zealand, I made most of that day.
I mean, the emotion in the stadium at that point. I mean, we'd had the performance against England where Southee took, what was it, 7 for, rocked England for, what were they? They were probably 73 to 100 all out or something.
Yeah.
Was that second spell of his, right?
I think it was, yeah.
Just it swung, right? And England just floundering against the swinging ball at that time in the innings, right? And then for Baz to come out and whack it like he did. I remember you hanging around at the other end for a while.
I was a runner ball 20 and everyone said I was blocking the pass out of it. It's like, come on.
Everything looked sedate compared to the way Baz was playing at that time, right?
It was, mate, I had the best seat in the house for most of that tournament. It was pretty bloody special, that.
That was incredible. I guess the point I was trying to get to is the nation, just the groundswell of support, the momentum wave that the nation was riding on the back of our performances. It wasn't necessarily the fact that we were winning, it was how we were winning, right? Southee 7 for, Baz whacking it, you coming into incredible form. You know, Vittoria's guile through the middle and that one-handed catch down a third man in that West Indies game. Like every game just had some hot, like Bolt's five for against Australia, right? You know,
Yep.
every game just had, you know, something special about it. And, you know, I felt like the noise and the sort of electricity of emotion in the stadium when you were going, you know, you would have been pumped up enough and probably, you know, at any venue, let alone, you know, how much the crowd was getting into it that day. Is there anything you recall
Paul
about that?
Caton it was pretty electric, eh? I mean, there was probably the only louder game I've played cricket at in New Zealand would have been the semi-final against South Africa at Eden Park. That was two of the loudest crowds I've been involved with in cricket in New Zealand, and it was bloody amazing. I mean, you what about 30,000 people in Wellington, 40,000 at Eden Park, just getting in behind us, going crazy. It was such a great period of time for cricket in New Zealand. It was so cool. It was awesome to be part of.
Moving forward a couple of years now, you made 180 not out against South Africa, chasing 280 in Hamilton, 2017. It was a pretty special innings from what I can remember. I remember you hitting a few big sixes as you became accustomed to at that time in your career, and felt from my recollections, and this is a while ago, but I felt like Tahir was the most threatening bowler, but you found a liking to him. What are your memories of that day?
Well, this is, and this may be an unpopular opinion, but this is by far my best innings for New Zealand. This wicket we played on was not very good for what we are used to in New Zealand. We opened we fielded first, opened the bowling with two spinners. We haven't done that in the subcontinent, let alone in New Zealand. So we had Santner open the bowling, Jeetan Patel opened the bowling as well. So yeah, we sort of knew the wicket was going to be slow, and then for a lot of that, they had some unbelievably good players in their side, and I think the only one that actually got going was, of course, it was AB. 70 off about 50, I think he got, made it look easy. Everybody else, Hashim Amla, Faf, Quinton de Kock, JP Duminy, they had a great side, and it was just such a tough wicket to get going on. I was at a time in my career where everything was flowing quite nicely. I was in great form. I've seen the ball nice, but also in the field I on a hamstring, so I played that whole innings on one leg, and my best innings to go with that. So it was, yeah, for me it was all about just sort of batting, creating a bit of a partnership with whoever was there with me, and it didn't matter if they were going slow or not, because I was able to keep going the way that I was. It was, it was, I can't put it down to anything in particular. It was just one of those days where things just flowed for me, went well. I don't think I gave a chance until I was on about 148, where AB almost pulled off an absolute specky one-hander to end up getting to 150, and then sort of, from there it didn't take long for us to get the win. But I think I was 50 off about 38, 40 balls, 100 off maybe 80 odd balls, and it was just, to me, it was just like the ultimate innings for me. It was like it couldn't get any better than that. I mean, I know a lot of people say that my 200 was, really good, but this was better. It was more difficult conditions against arguably one of the better bowling attacks going around. And as you say, Emi Tahir was pretty difficult on that wicket. I think I ended up hitting him for 5 or 6 sixes, and he went for 50 in 10 overs, sort of thing. So it was just one of those days where things just clicked for me. It's if I'm looking for things in my technique now, that's one of the games I go to have a look at what I was doing then to see if anything's changed now. So that's always up there for me as one to keep going back to and reverting to.
So you referred to how the wicket was quite different on that particular day, how the ball spun a lot more. You opened with 2 spinners yourselves. How does that impact the options that you're trying to take? You talked about hitting five or so sixes off to here, does that mean that when the ball's a certain length, you're looking to go deeper in the crease and play off the back foot? How did the conditions on that day change your batting plan?
Not, if I'm being honest, not too much. The sort of vein form I was in was I just batted normally, and then my go-to was obviously, because I'm a front foot dominant player, was to get forward to Imi and nudge him around, try and get ones where I can, and hit the odd boundary off him. And I was lucky enough to get, I think it might have been his first over. He's tried his, out the front of the hand slider, and he's just dropped it a fraction short. And I've just rocked back and pulled him over mid wicket. And that sort of, I think, put him a little bit like, oh, okay, maybe I've got to try and give a little bit more. And then throughout those 10 overs, I managed to get him over cover once, couple down the ground, and another pull shot, slog sweep, sort of thing. So it was sort of everywhere, but it was those balls in and around that where I was able to like get one or get a pad on it for a league bye that sort of kept the innings going. I remember Roscoe was, we put on 180, I think, in this game, and he was struggling. I think he got 50 off 80, 60 off 80 or something like that, and it wasn't a typical Ross Taylor innings. He was struggling a wee bit, but he was able to get either a pad on it or chew up a few dot balls and then get off strike, and I could get either a boundary or hit a two, or keep things going. But the great thing about it is that he didn't get flustered and didn't throw it away. We built that partnership. We built the innings to get to a point, and then I think once he got out, Luke Ronke came in and we finished it off. And then, fortunately, in that, like what became the last over of the game, is I alluded to pulling my hamstring and the World Fielding. I actually pulled the other hamstring, and that what ended up being the last over. So the last over ended up on no legs. And I turned the ball off my hip, took off because it was two, bang, felt it go straight away. And I came down to Luke and I said, I've just done my other one. I've got to try and finish this pretty quick here. Next two balls, I ended up almost getting run out on singles. So, and then I thought, no, bugger it, I just got to try and go here. And I went downtown, slog sweep, and then I think AB ended up dropping another one off me to end up winning the game. So, yeah, great innings. Ended up being on no legs for it.
So, being injured, did that change your plan at all?
Not really, to be honest. It was just those really quick, short, sharp singles. If I was at the opposite, was at the non-strikers, and I was like, no, stay there. And then long twos, and then boundaries. So it was like, it just, to me, that was my perfect innings. Had I been able to be like fully being able to run, it may have been completely different. You just don't know these things. So yeah, mate, cherish that innings massively.
Awesome, man. Awesome memories. Now, my favourite will be 100 against Australia at Sydney. I remember the series because in terms of our squad, I remember we brought the likes of BJ back into the mix from ODI perspective, which he'd been just playing tests for a number of years. And then I remember Jimmy, I think, was one of his first series from an ODI perspective. I think in terms of batting up the order anyway, if I can recall correctly.
Because we didn't have Roscoe for that series because he had surgery on his eye.
Right.
So he was out of that series, which is a massive blow for us. He's obviously our most experienced player. So yeah, tough one for us. But yeah, I think we actually ended up doing steady away. Another couple of wickets that we didn't lose. I think we lost a few crucial wickets at crucial times throughout that series, and that sort of put us on the back foot. We ended up losing 3-0, unfortunately.
Yes, and being a New Zealand fan for nearly 40 years, the games you value the most are how New Zealand performs against Australia, right? And we haven't always got it right in terms of, I felt we've often been quite intimidated, especially their bowling attack has been incredible for as long as you can probably remember. And so this is why this innings stood out to me, because I felt like Australia had an incredibly strong bowling lineup. an earlier sort of younger version of basically the lineup they've got today. You stood there, you whacked it everywhere, you made Stark look like a military medium pacer. What are your memories of that day?
Yeah, it was just like any other day, really. What Smith got 160, we were chasing 300 and plenty. It was yeah, it was always going to be a tough chase. We were sort of behind the eight ball earlier. We lost two early wickets, Tommy and Kane both out early. And then yeah, it was just we needed a partnership. Jimmy and I put on 90 pretty easily. Then they brought Stark back to, get the breakthrough, and Jimmy's tried to take him down. And I was just look back and I'm thinking, why'd you do that? We just need to go for another, because we were running a ball easy. We were making it look easy. We're putting on, a good partnership. If that had gone 10 more overs, it could have been a completely different game. We would have been well ahead of the eight ball, up with the run rate easily, and we could have ended up winning it. But obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We'd all love to, do things differently, but look, this is the way it went. And then we lost another quick couple of wickets after that, and sort of really put us on the back foot. So, but that innings for me didn't get off to the quickest of starts. I think I actually ended up being 4 off 10, and I had a boundary on my 10th ball. So it wasn't a very quick start, but once I got into it, it was things just sort of flowed for me. I remember walking down at Hazelwood and hitting him back over his head for 6. And that one's the sort of the one that got me going. I flicked Stark off my toes for 6. And then it was just, it was, I wouldn't say it wasn't easy. But I never felt like I was in trouble, if that makes sense. I got dropped early-ish off Zampa, George Bailey at mid-wicket, rocked back and pulled one straight at him, and he put it down, luckily for us. But it was just one of those, the first time I'd faced Cummins as well. And Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, I mean, that's a pretty formidable bowling lineup, and they had Mitch Marsh and Zampa as well. It was, pretty impressive bowling unit, and I was lucky enough to hit, a number in the middle that day.
Awesome, mate. If we drop down a few sort of levels here to think about, the challenges you faced in your career, I'm interested now in, what was the lowest point emotionally in your career? It's always useful talking about the highs, but from a perspective of, young players trying to learn about the game, it's also crucial that we hear from the best players as to how they handle those struggles. If you can recollect, a particular struggle that you faced and what you tried to do to get out of it.
There's probably a couple that sort of stand out to me. The 2014 T20 World Cup in Bangladesh, I was completely in the bush. Which is funny because I got some runs against Australia in a warm-up game, some good runs there, but after that it just seemed like, I don't know what it was, that I couldn't tell you what happened, but just literally couldn't hit the ball, couldn't score runs, and you get increasingly frustrated going through that, and you start searching for things that may not necessarily be wrong, and I think there was one time where that certainly happened, and you look back on it now and think, what could I have done differently? How could I have scored runs? And at the end of the day, the best way to do it is out in the middle. You find your way out in the middle, whether it's some days, it's an edge for 4 that gets you going, that sort of thing. There's such a, as you know, it's such a crazy, stupid game that we play, that you can feel your best but have one of your worst innings, and you can feel your worst but have one of your best innings. It works, swings and roundabouts like that, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just one of those things that happens. And I couldn't pull myself out of that at that stage in my career. It was just one of those things where things seemed to spiral, and it got worse and worse and worse. We ended up getting knocked out in the, I think it was a Super 6 or Super 8 stage or whatever it was. We got bowled out very cheaply against Sri Lanka, and as a team, that was like one of our lowest points. That was some shocking cricket from us. We weren't chasing that many, but we got bowled out for about 60, I think it was, and we felt embarrassed as a team. It was pretty bad. From a team that should have done a whole lot better than what we did at that stage. So that was it was a tough time for me back then. And then probably the 2019 World Cup as well. That was a tough one. I started off the tournament really well. I got 70 or 50 in the first game. Got a really good 20, 30 odd against Bangladesh in the second game, and then things just went south very quickly. And I can't tell you what it was. I don't know what happened. A little bit of bad luck here and there. But then it just sort of compounded on itself. And another time where we went searching and just couldn't find an answer. It was, and then the way that I dealt with it was to go and play county cricket, some blast for Worcestershire, and sort of find it that way, get straight back into it. Whether that's right or wrong, couldn't tell you. But you eventually do come out of those times. You sit back and in retrospect and think, yeah, tough time, but you always pick yourself up. And everybody's different in the way they do it. You always pick yourself up. You always find a way. You always find the fun in it again, because when you're going through it, it's not fun. Cricket's no fun when you're trying to search and find things. But you always find a way. You always come out of it better for the experience. You never want to experience these things, but life's hard, and you end up going through them no matter who you are. So they end up being some pretty positive experiences moving forward. You always try and find the positives out of things, and it was once again that 2019 World Cup was a special experience for the team. Getting through, we played once again for some reason knockouts in the Black Caps, knockout games in the Black Caps always bring out something weird in the game of cricket, right? Yeah, we'll probably go back to the 2011 Cricket World Cup with the quarterfinal against South Africa. Not sure if you remember that one.
I do.
Hashim Amla, like toe of the bat off Baz's foot, pops up, run out of AB de Villiers, Jake's catch on the boundary of Jacques Callis. Then you fast forward to the semi-final against them at Eden Park, Grant Elliott, Corey Anderson's partnership, to the semi-final against India in 2019, the 2-day, 1-day game. I'll always be remembered for a run out rather than what I did with the bat, and sort of thing, And then you go through the final where tied game, and then tied after the Super Over. I don't know what it is. There's just something strange happens with knockout games and the Black Caps. But man, those experiences, well, for us, it's a 3 or 4 times in a lifetime. But wow, to be part of it, it's pretty special, pretty amazing.
Just intrigued as well how your pre-match preparation has changed over the years. Say, if we look back to before you made your debut for New Zealand to, how you are now, how has that evolved?
Yeah, it's changed a wee bit. I've always, since it's been available to us, like before a game, I tend to have a full net. Now it's obviously against people with the flicker. That back before those were a thing, it was sort of throwdowns before a game, and it was just hitting balls really. I didn't have an understanding of what I wanted to get out of it. But nowadays, once I've had that experience, it's all about making sure that my footwork is good, making sure I'm moving well, I'm hitting, seeing the ball well, I'm picking length well. And like a day before training, I may only bat for 10 minutes. If things feel good, 10 minutes and I'm done. If it can sometimes take me 20 minutes, it just depends on the day really. But as soon as I'm happy, I'm out of there, done and dusted. You don't want to overtrain the day before a game. Game day, just same sort of thing. Get my feet going, make sure that everything's moving well, and then I'm straight into the game. Not too much mental prep. I've never been massively big on that sort of thing, but there is still a little bit of thing to think about the game, how you're going to approach each bowler. That's our scouting meetings and things like that. Do my own little scouting sessions as well while I'm probably the night before the game. So that's sort of done and dusted, so I can just have the morning off and just relax really.
So in terms of the talk you mentioned there about scouting, is that for you? You talk about your plans against each type of bowler. Are you in any way visualizing the shots that you're trying to score from each bowler?
Not necessarily. It's just more if I haven't played them in a while, it's more sort of just getting reacquainted with their action and that sort of thing and their release points and that. So I get a bit of an idea of what's going to be coming down to me before I actually get out there and face it. So um, it's yeah, that's pretty much the crux of it. If there's spinner that I haven't faced, it's sort of having a look at see if they've got variations, that sort of thing, and if there's change in action and that along those lines. So not necessarily the visualization of what shots I'm going to play because that can always change out in the middle because their plans can change pretty quick if you get going or that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm pretty low key on all that sort of side of it.
And if you were to boil it down to ultimately what you feel the difference is between when you're scoring runs and you're feeling good, compared to those times you've talked about 2014, 2019, when you're just struggling to find a way to score, does it come down to simply the nature of having full trust in your instinct and your ability to simply react versus sometimes overthinking it?
Yeah, and that's the key thing is just reacting. If you have thoughts going on in your head while the bowler's running in, you're losing the battle already. You've got to be as clear as possible. Um, and if you think back to times where you've scored runs, I know it happened to me, is like when you're in those things, you're not thinking. You're simply reacting. And that's all batting should be. Yes, there's the tactical side of that, but that happens between balls. What's the equation I need? What's our score? Where are we going? How did that happens between balls? But as soon as you're in your stance in the batter's box, it's clear head, watch the ball. That's all that matters. And you've got to keep it simple because batting, if you try, it can overcomplicate very quickly. And I think those times that I alluded to before, that's what happened. I was thinking about other things and just not worrying about the ball. So if you can keep it as simple as possible, you'll have a lot of success.
That's brilliant, man. Like, boiling it down to the simplest thing, as you said, right? It's just all about the ball. So if you are in those moments where you are struggling and you're just getting random thoughts coming through your head, have you found, is there anything you've been able to utilize in those moments to try and, sort of shift out of that thought that's popped in and just get that clarity to watch the ball?
Probably a couple of things I can't say on here. A few key words that I've said to myself to get me back on track. But like everybody's different. When we were growing up, obviously Mark Richardson was he's a prime example. He had this thing where if he had a bad thought coming, he'd sort of do that and brush it off his shoulder. And as soon as people found out what he was doing, he had to change that sort of thing. So it was everybody's different. I mean, you've probably used things in your career different to what I've used, different to what Kane used, Ross, everybody, Um, does it always work? Not necessarily. But if you have your own little ways of dealing with it, and if you stick to it over a period of time, it becomes a bit easier to be more consistent with it.
Awesome, man. It's a question you probably already alluded to, the innings you're most proud of. Would it be the South African innings, or is there any other innings that stands out as well?
Can I single out one innings that I'm most proud of, or is it my whole career? I mean, as a kid, you always dreamed of playing for New Zealand, where it'd be one game. I played 367. I'm extremely proud of that. I never ever thought that would ever happen as a kid growing up. So to get the chance to have played one game for New Zealand was absolutely amazing. So special, but to have played for the best part of 14 years and play 360 odd games, something I'll cherish forever, something I'll never take for granted. So yeah, I mean, my whole career, I mean, I'm proud of it. So yeah, that's maybe a boring answer, but no, that's my whole career is pretty special.
Not a boring answer at all, man. watching many of those 367 from the couch was incredible. The odd game in person, but like you're saying, it's I was we're not blood relatives, but given the amount of cricket we played together, it was incredibly enjoyable watching your journey, and having those days where you were just in full flow. I mean, there haven't been too many New Zealanders over the years who've been able to take down attacks like you have, and yeah, I mean the joy that brings as we talk about an entertainment industry. The joy that brings any fan is awesome, man. So we've always got those memories, and we can thankfully we've got YouTube these days to keep tabs on how good those times were. Just finally, I don't know if you wanted to mention, it was anyone in particular that had the biggest influence on your career, and why?
Probably a few names to mention. One's Peter Guptill, the old boy. He's the one who got me into cricket, got me my love for the game. He's no longer with us now, unfortunately, but he's. I grew up down at Suburbs New Zealand Cricket Club, watching him play and just wanting to play as well. So he is the number one. Then obviously you got Mark O'Donnell. Gave me my first opportunity at Auckland to play for the Aces, and then 20 years later, I'm still using him for throwdowns and things, but to get ready for a competition. So he's another one, and obviously the late Martin Crowe as well. He was huge through that period, 2014 to 2016 when he passed away. That I worked a lot with him. It was a great time, and I was extremely lucky and fortunate to have been able to have that time with him before he passed away. So it's just still going back to a lot of what he said. I've got screenshots and messages that we've had with each other and things like that. So still go back and have a read of those from time to time.
If you were to simplify the message that he generally, tried to push with you, what would that be in as succinct a summary as you can put it?
His big thing was footwork, being on the balls of your feet and that sort of thing, and just being light on your feet as possible. And that was, through that World Cup period, but that's when we worked probably the most together, was leading into that season of the World Cup. All that hard work, hours in the nets and things like that, it finally paid off for me. It was pretty special, and he was working for Cricket Info, I think, at the time as well. So he was actually there watching games and that through that World Cup, and watching things evolve and watching things develop, and it all sort of finally came together. And those couple of games where I got those hundreds, and then from there it was the couple of years of footwork, which he obviously was unable to see a lot of it with his illness and things like that. But I'm forever thankful that he gave me his time to be able to work with him and get his knowledge of the game. And that was awesome. And I know Ross is extremely thankful as well.